Hello, Carol Amendola Dianca here, and I have some more information for you about blue zones. So if you are new to the concept of blue zones and where they are in the world and what makes a geographical area a blue zone, then I do have another video about what does it mean to be a blue zone and what constitutes a blue zone. But if you are familiar with it and looking for some information or further information about health and longevity, I can definitely provide that to you in this video. I am a board certified nutritionist that has been fascinated by nutrition and longevity and learning about the blue zones over the last 10 or 15 years and wanting to visit them myself. So the information that I am providing in this video is coming from my research study that I did on a week-long research tour of the Blue Zone of Sardinia. Now that doesn't mean that the whole island of Sardinia is a blue zone, but there is an area with 6 villages that compromises the Blue Zone of Sardinia. As I mentioned in my other video, there's a blue zone in Okinawa, Japan, in Ikaria, Greece, and in the Nicoyan Peninsula in Costa Rica. And those are the 4 areas designated on the globe as blue zones. And again, blue zone is an area where people enjoy exceptional longevity without the chronic illnesses of the Western world and growing throughout the globe. So researchers initially were absolutely baffled how someone could live to be 100 and not have any heart disease, any diabetes, Alzheimer's, high blood pressure. And the research studies have been ongoing for the last 20 years with fascinating outcome of conclusions. But today I have 3 things that I want to share with you about the blue zones of the world. And the first one is that I expected when I visited the Blue Zone of Sardinia that I was going to see some utopian place, some Shangri-La where life was pretty easy, where the climate was perfect, although it's a lot better than Chicago, where people had a fairly easy life and that they were living long and enjoying a lot of leisure time. And that was not the case. I landed at the capital of Sardinia and went 70 kilometers north into villages that have just a lot of daily movement in order to get through your day. Streets that went up and down where people walk mainly by foot, not a lot on car. And what I learned is that the average walking per day per resident in one of the villages is about 6 miles. So you really have to walk everywhere, and it's not walking on flat surfaces. This again is a mountainous region. And so when I looked out at the terrain, I thought, wow, this is really living very, very close to nature. One other interesting thing is that Sardinia, of course, is an island, but the people in the villages of the Blue Zone really do not eat a lot of fish because they're so high up in the mountains. Even though they're on an island, the sea is far below them. So, tip number 1, a lot of movement, a lot of walking everywhere and not on flat pavement. The other is that the people were very, very resilient. There have been studies on their resilience, and I met people that were 95 and 100 years old and talked with them, sometimes through a translator, sometimes with my Italian that I could speak, and many of them in Sardinia and other regions of Italy speak their own dialect, so it's not exactly real easy, but I did have a research scientist with me that made sure I understood every single word. And they told me about what their lives were like. Women told me how their husbands left and went into the forest, deep into the forest with their flock of sheep or goats and lived there for 4 or 5 months and lived, foraging for food, or people from the villages would bring them bread, this wonderful bread that they still make today that without preservatives lasts a couple of weeks. And they worked hard. And yet they were very resilient, and they had an attitude of acceptance. And what the researchers said is that they had very low ill mental health, but very also low when considered and compared socioeconomic status, which is usually the opposite in research studies. So that was just fascinating to learn and to talk to someone who's 100 years old and ask them what life was like 75 years ago and how they got along and what their life was like. And one woman told me, they had to even give their jewelry to their wedding ring, their precious wedding ring, to the government, because all gold was melted down so that the military could build a military ammunition and whatever they needed. And she said at the time it just kind of broke her heart. But, there was just this acceptance. And the more I read about mental agility and personal growth, there are two things that are always at the top of the list. Two characteristics of people that have a resilience, and that is number one, acceptance, and number two, courage. And certainly these people definitely had that. So it's the movement, it's the resilience that they have. And then the third thing that I saw that was very, very common throughout the villages is strong social networks. And that doesn't mean social media networks, but social, person to person. People knew each other, people accepted each other, people helped each other, people needed each other in order to really prosper in life and to make it a good life. And so these social networks were amazing. People weren't sitting down alone to have dinner. They were sitting down with friends and neighbors and family, and they were taken care of in a way that was caring. And that doesn't mean that they were taken care of in their physical needs, but mentally, that everyone knew who they were, where they came from, where they were living, and enjoying exchanging ideas, cooking together, eating together. And we have learned a lot about having strong social networks and longevity, and mental and physical health, and how important that is. I think we've all had a little bit of that message through the pandemic. When people are isolated, it's not good for our health. So those are three things I wanted to share with you today about the Blue Zone, Blue Zones in general, and the Blue Zones of Sardinia, and firsthand things that I have discovered myself. So please subscribe to my channel if you don't mind. I think there's a button below, and it will help me to continue to bring you information that you're not going to see or hear on the news in snippets, but real stuff that I've learned over the years as a nutritionist. Thank you so much for joining.